Hello there, I'm Dave from Dyno Bike, and today we are tuning a Fatboy 2023 model, and this one has a Screaming Eagle 122 kit fitted to it, and it's also had a generic file written to the ECU that is supposedly configured to this kit that's in it. Customer says it's been running fine on the road, and I've road tested it and actually agree with them. It seems to be okay on the road. But if you're looking at those AFR graphs that we were monitoring earlier, you would see that it was running massively rich on both cylinders, ridiculously so actually, and we now need to correct that. And I guess, you know, from your point of view, you might think that you've had all this work done and the bike feels and runs nice on the road, so why do I need to get a dyno tune or at least get it checked? And it's because it might feel okay on the road, and it often will feel okay on the road when it is running excessively rich, but you won't know that it's running excessively rich unless you've been monitoring your fuel consumption closely, and in most cases people generally don't. They just assume that okay, it's a bigger engine now, it's going to use some more fuel, and that's what it is. But down the track, when it's got a few more miles on it, because it's washed all the oil off the bore due to the richness, it then starts to burn oil, and oil consumption goes up along with probably fuel consumption, and in no time at all we're having to pull it all apart and rebuild the top end because it's worn out. So I'm going to correct that here today. I'm going to pull the mixtures back and get them to somewhere between 12.5 and 13.5, which is an acceptable ratio for this model bike. And then we will have a look at the horsepower graphs and see if we've made any improvement there. So for me, the job is not so much to see how much more power we can get out of it, but more to correct the mixtures so that this bike is reliable and we get a decent mileage out of it without any dramas down the road. So I'll go ahead now and I'll make some changes to the mapping, and then we'll run it again and see how it looks, and then we'll have a look at our power curve and see if we have made any improvements. Alright, so I think you'll all agree, looking at those AFR graphs here before, when we're, you know, cruising at 60 to 100 kilometers an hour, and when we've got the throttle wide open and accelerating hard, those mixtures are much better than what they were before. This bike is and will be much happier as a result. So let's have a look at the graphs and see if we've actually made much of an impression there. I can pop those up in a moment, and you'll probably be surprised that the numbers are as low as they are, and that is predominantly because this bike, if you haven't already noticed, has got a V&H radius exhaust on it, and radius exhaust is not designed for horsepower, it's purely there for aesthetics and a bit of noise, and that is why this bike is only producing, what is it, 109 horsepower. Realistically it should be around the 120, 125 if it had a decent exhaust system on it, and I mean a 2-into-1 or a 2-into-1 back into 2 again. The results would be completely different to what they currently are. Having said that, it's still got a massive amount of torque. I think it's up around the 125 foot-pounds of torque, and at the end of the day, how much do you really need? So I'll pop these graphs up for you now. You can see what the difference is, horsepower and torque, and then make your own minds up. So I guess really the moral of the story is that not to assume that everything is going okay when you've had this sort of upgrade done and the bike hasn't been dynoed, or at least checked to make sure that the tune is correct. And they have what I call a generic tune loaded into it. It's certainly worth checking to make sure that everything is happy, to prevent any problems down the road long term wise. We do have tunes for some of the Harleys, and they are called what we call virtual tunes. The difference between them and these generic tunes that we see here is that they've been developed here on this dyno, and we know what to expect, and we know what's going to happen when we put one of these tunes in, and they are almost as good as a custom tune as a result. So food for thought. At the bottom of the screen you will see there's some links there to go to our online store. It might be something there that's worth purchasing, or certainly considering. Perhaps the dyno tune is one of those things you want to consider. And I will leave you guys with that thought and get on with the next job. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'm Dave from Dyno Bike.